Hi, everybody. My name is Craig Saydur. I'm from Beth Hillel Temple, and I studied something called permaculture design from Kibbutz Lotan in Israel. Permaculture is self-sustaining agriculture. We can get more into that in a bit. I just got my master's from UW Parkside in leadership and public service, and I've worked with well-known ecologists, including, if y'all ever saw the Netflix documentary about the guy who built houses out of tires. I did work with him, and he was a character, Michael Reynolds. So first slide, please. So we all know equity is important. We all know trees are important. We all know green space is important, and they all tie together. So I don't need to stand here and tell you guys that trees are important. It's kind of sad that I need to tell you science backs this up. We know that mental health, physical health, all are affected by our green space. So there's a website called treeequityscore.com or .org. I can get you that exact address. And what they've done is they've compiled data. They've looked at neighborhoods, looked at race, ethnicity, income bracket, and then green space or tree canopy. They've combined this to see if a neighborhood is equitable. Does anybody here know a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of trees? Right? Probably a lot, right? Like a lot of them, right? Even my neighborhood near Northside Library, there's areas that are more equitable than others. So we wouldn't think of that. So that means we can talk about heat islands, we can talk about all sorts of things, but there are such things as tree deserts. And I don't know if that is copyrighted term or not, but I do like that term, tree desert, like a food desert. So can we actually go back to that last slide? I apologize. So the tree equity score measures how the critical benefits of urban canopy are reaching those who need them. We're looking at equity because we know that richer neighborhoods have more green space than poorer neighborhoods, and that needs to be fixed. So tree equity score took the information, and they've given a measure from 0 to 100. Next slide, please. So clearly 0's lowest, 100's in more need. So they look at income, employment, surface temperature, and these variables right here. Next slide, please. They look at urban area population, tree canopy, cover, and all of these things. And next slide, please. So to expand the urban canopy, we have found, this slide tells me how much we actually need to make Kenosha, specifically Kenosha, to have an equitable tree score. We would need 8.5 square miles in urban environments. That's a really important variable because we can look at planting more trees at Parkside, which would be redundant, right? How about looking at areas where we need trees? And 8.5 square miles doesn't seem that unreasonable, but that is what the score is, so we at least have that. The average score in Kenosha is a 75, which means needed work. Next slide, please. So these are the different areas. I am colorblind, so I hope other people can tell the colors better because it gives you, I don't think the little key is on there, but it shows what areas have a more equitable score. And then is there one more slide? Nope, that is not my slide. But there is one neighborhood that I did identify. My wife will tell you I am terrible at geography, so that's why I have maps and scores. But there is an area in Kenosha, the lowest score I could find was a 37 in Kenosha. So if 100 is equitable, 37 is atrocious. So my proposal here, what I think is important, is to look at that neighborhood, identify it, and other neighborhoods like that, and plant trees. So one thing Grant and I were joking about is the term trees for equity. It's not just planting trees, it's planting trees for equity. Thank you.
And Craig and I were talking about this, and he was saying with the trees, we would want to be looking at, in particular, at native species of trees for many reasons, and I'm going to focus on that, which is as a complement to what Craig has been talking about, that we also, if we do start a new environmental task force with CUSH, that we advocate for regenerating biodiversity. So an issue. There's a famous entomologist, ecologist named Douglas Tallamy, and he stated that the World Wildlife Fund says that we've lost 2/3 of our wildlife since 1970. Now, some of us in this room remember a lot of things. There's a thing called the windshield phenomenon. Like, we used to go for a ride. We used to go in my dad's car, and he'd drive us in the country Saturday night, and the windshield was covered with bugs. That doesn't happen anymore because the pesticides have killed so many insects, which are some of the basis of our ecology. But Douglas Tallamy says that we can turn that around by putting the right plants back. We lost those species by taking away the plants that support them, which are native plants. We call it habitat loss, and it is, but it doesn't have to be. We can have productive native plants in our cities. On the edges of our agriculture, there's a thing called pollinator strips that farmers can do so they don't have to hand pollinate crops because we're losing so many native bees. We can have them in our yards, on our roadsides, on our corporate landscapes. There's no reason why we can't be using those plants. And we don't have to wait for politicians to pass the policy. We can do many things in our own yards or on our patios. On our balconies. So I do have a little background for CUSH's history with this issue. So the slide showing now was from a task force that we started in. It lasted about a year. It was called Homegrown National Park, which is the website of Douglas Tallamy, the entomologist. And the primary accomplishments of the task force were removal of many non-native plants. So you can see, it's kind of hard because it's a collage, but there were a lot of bio bags there of non-native plants that I removed from the grounds of Grace Lutheran Church. So we could make room for 200 plus plants that the students of Harborside Academy grew in their gardens on the roof of their school. And then we also created a brochure to educate the community about the importance of native plants. And there's also a sign there talking about asking people to please stay on the sidewalk, and it was signed the baby native plants and the species that were going to be living with them. So if we start a new environmental task force, these are some actions that we could take. We could educate ourselves by reading Nature's Best Hope, and I already have a syllabus for that book study if people would like to do it. Visit the Homegrown National Park website, which is Douglas Tallamy's website. And Homegrown National Park is the idea that we don't have, even if we used all the national parks that are kind of in danger right now, but even if they weren't, that's still not enough land for us to restore our biodiversity. So we need to think about our own yards. And so that's why this book is called Nature's Best Hope. It's talking about our own yards. And then Homegrown National Park is the title of that idea. We could start a National Wildlife Federation Eco Schools program. I learned about this through my daughter, who has a friend, a colleague in Madison Public Schools, and there are all kinds of eco school programs for all different grade levels. But if you could show the clip, there's a real short part of a YouTube video. It's called Building a Native Healing and Memorial Garden at a high school in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Do you have that clip?
Hi, my name is Anita Singh. I'm here with NWF's Eco Green program, and we are at Ace High School in Ypsilanti, Michigan, taking a tour of their native pollinator and healing garden that they've implemented here.
My name is Lauren Fardig-Diop, and I am the Culture and Climate Coach here at Ace High School. A lot of our young people, in fact most of our young people, have experienced the process of grief very, very close to them. So I would say half to 75% of our kids have lost a caregiver, a parent, a sibling. The process of grief for them is very real and very close to them. And the garden actually really came from students in terms of what they needed to be able to help them process through their grief.
My name is Patricia Tabb. I go by Miss Patty here at ACE. I am the secretary and I deal with a lot of paperwork and phone calls, so being out in the garden has been the highlight of my year. So this space has been dedicated to the ACE Memorial Garden. We have purchased a plaque to honor this space and to dedicate the people who have lost their lives too soon, and hopefully they can appreciate that for years to come. I couldn't have done this without Eco Green.
Eco Green is a program of Eco Schools USA, which is a national program administered by National Wildlife Federation, and it follows a scientific method framework, a 7-step framework where teachers and students investigate an issue. They do an audit on it and see what's needed to implement some changes in their school campus. There's also some memorial flags that have been installed, and so they'll be mulching around that area as well.
My name is Maya. I'm in 11th grade and I go to ACE High School. The reason I'm at ACE is because I took care of my mom in 9th grade when she had her surgery. I tried going to the main high school. They said...
Thank you. So that's one thing that we can do with a green space in schools. I also have a Google slideshow, Why Native Plants. I keep adding to it, so now I have 41 slides. And it also includes, one of the things that I added is like how you can grow native plants in containers wherever you live. So that's something I could present to different groups, congregations, or any groups. And then other things we could do is improve our yards, gardens, shrink our lawns, plant native plants, especially keystone species, which are the plants that support the highest number of native species. So like goldenrod, oak trees are keystone species. You get the most bang for your buck with those kind. And then we could build collaborative relationships in the larger community, and advocating for more green spaces in low-income neighborhoods, as Craig was addressing, advocating for native landscaping in the Kenosha Innovation neighborhood and other new city and county projects. I know that some of that is happening now, but we could use more. And then I have a friend who's a landlord in Kenosha, and he told me about the Kenosha Landlord Association. We could speak with them and tell them the benefits of planting natives there. I mean, they're less maintenance once they're established, and all kinds of things that would benefit them and their renters. And then I was recently collaborating with the people in Racine, the Racine Interfaith Coalition, and they told me about the Rights of Nature program, which is a wisdom initiative. And the Rights of Nature doctrine states that ecosystems can legally be considered people, which would allow them to defend themselves in court. Under law, this would give ecosystems legal personhood, the right to survive, thrive, and be represented in court by a guardian. Recognizing the legal rights of nature is not a new idea. Many different indigenous populations have recognized the rights of nature for centuries. Indigenous communities' deep relationships with nature helped build social systems that didn't center on humans. They were able to protect their natural resources for centuries by prioritizing them within legal systems. To grow the rights of nature movement, environmentalists should listen to indigenous leaders in law. So, in conclusion, I have a little inspiration. There's a photo of my 2024 driveway garden. And there's some of the many pollinators. There are different kinds of wasps, a whole bit different kinds of bees that were visiting my garden last year. And if people want to come visit now, it's a work in progress, and I have more and more natives being added. Thank you.
Do we have, okay, there we go. Great. Let's all give another round of applause for Karen and Craig. Thank you so much. Before we move on to our next issue, our next presentation, I wanted to give a brief question period for anyone who has anything fresh on their mind that they would like to ask of Karen and Craig about this initiative, about their past experience with the CUSH Environments Task Force or the Homegrown National Parks Task Force, or any other questions related to environmental justice.
I just wondered if there's any kind of funding available for purchasing trees or native plants.
I'll take it first. Is that okay, or do you want to go first? Okay. I was talking to someone who's knowledgeable in this, and there's a few avenues, and that would definitely be something we talk about. But one is to talk with the city, figure out budget, because we already are planting trees. So how to figure out what they're already planting, where they're planting it, start there. And then there is organizations that do have funding for this. So that's on my end.
And I have written a grant a couple of years ago for Wild Ones, and I finally joined Wild Ones this last year. And so they also, that's a nationwide organization, but we have the Root River, Racine, Kenosha Wild Ones chapter that has grants locally for homeowners and other organizations.
And it'll certainly be, I believe it would be a needed focus to look at too, what resources are available and then what more can we get.
Fantastic. Any other questions for Karen and Craig?
When it comes to native species, how granular is the distribution of, well, to be more specific, I come from Lake County, Illinois, so is there a significant difference between native species there and versus here, or are they pretty similar?
My understanding from talking to my friends, many of whom are very progressive, don't understand the importance of native species at all. They just and it's not anything against them, but they kind of are following the same idea that the colonists followed, that when you came here, you plant things for decorations, and you have your lawns, and it's all nice and neat, and you have people polluting the air with blowers instead of sweeping with a broom, get the grass off, and people don't get it. That's my experience in Kenosha. Of course, there are some nature areas in Kenosha County that understand that, but people aren't understanding that none of our native species are going to eat their hydrangeas, you know. So I think there's a lot of education to be done. Does that answer it at all, or?
Well, I was wondering if you were aware of any differences in species.
Oh, the species. I thought
across the state line.
I thought you were talking about the plants, or are you talking about the actual insects and birds and all that too?
Well, the native plant species.
You know, I haven't looked into that, so I don't know about across state lines. And do you?
I don't believe there is much. I know our zones are pretty similar across the state line. So, I mean, remember, a state line is just a man-made thing in the first place. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that most food products were not native to this area except for Jerusalem artichoke and sunflowers? Yeah. My parents hate that I planted Jerusalem artichoke, and then when they moved, they're mad that they didn't go with them because it's so tasty. But yeah, so most plants are, they do go, like pawpaw is something that grows native around here. We don't have pawpaw. It's not a perfect fruit. It ripens too quick. So I don't think there's too much, but there's probably a slight, and that would be something to look at. But also another point of attention is our zones are shifting as the climate shifts. So our zone in this area actually has already changed from when I was a young boy.
Thank you again to Craig and Karen. We can save the last of the questions to the open comment forum.
I just had a comment about the question that was asked. Maybe the Farmer's Almanac with its growing zones would be a more helpful place to locate what grows where, native plants and non-native ones.
No, the Farmer's Almanac's not real accurate with that. So.
All right, thank you again to Craig and Karen. Can we get another round of applause for these two?